Guys, welcome to CryptosRUs. I am George. Today's another day where we have someone come on TV and start laughing at Bitcoin. And you know what? This is all thanks to Peter Schiff. Yesterday I started looking for Peter Schiff because he pretty much disappeared. And he pointed to me, me to the fact that CNBC brought in someone that actually, decided to laugh at Bitcoin. And I decided to look up who he is, his background, and turns out he's a con man. So no surprise there. So today I want to talk about this person and what he said about Bitcoin on CNBC, and also look at Grayscale. Grayscale, this is what I anticipated. You will not believe the amount of Bitcoins that Grayscale purchased within a single day. The previous day, I looked at the numbers from a day ago, right? I showed you guys those numbers, I believe yesterday or a day before. And I just saw the recent number in terms of how much they bought the last day. And it is mind-boggling. It's really mind-boggling. So if you're still in disbelief, you still don't believe that institutions are FOMO in, well, I got some hard evidence for you, and that will really blow your mind. So thanks for tuning in, guys. As always, make sure you smash up the like, subscribe to the channel if you are new to the channel, and hit that notification bell. I still get comments periodically from people saying they don't get my notifications. So make sure you also follow me on Twitter and Facebook, because I do post these videos on both platforms, so that if you don't get it, you'll see them on there, right? So let's get started. Let's talk about Peter Schiff, because he did appear negative as usual. See, I'm getting a lot of comments, and I can see the number of people tuning in right now. It seems like notifications is not working today, which is why there's a low amount of people coming in. But I don't know. Sometimes YouTube notifications just break and you don't really know because you just don't get it, right? So that's why make sure you follow me on Facebook and Twitter so you don't miss out. And also, oh, by the way, before I get started, I do want to thank those of you guys that joined Patreon. I had a few people join Patreon yesterday, so thank you for joining. Also, a few people that wanted to learn about Bitcoin, and they signed up for my Teachable class. So I want to thank those of you guys that came in, especially if you are new. I'm seeing a lot more comments. I'm seeing on Reddit. I'm seeing on Twitter. There's a lot more people that is coming into Bitcoin. They really don't understand it. If you want a crash course, that's what my Teachable class is all about. And of course, Patreon for exclusive content. All right, so let's get started. Let's look at Peter Schiff. So there's a Peter Schiff sighting. Yesterday, I was kind of poking fun of him, saying that, where did he go? Why did he disappear with Bitcoin above 20,000? What happened? What happened to Peter Schiff? Well, today he decided to tweet. He couldn't hold himself and contain himself, and said, of course, that Bitcoin is a bubble. So as you can see here, CNBC finally had a guest, and the guest is Henry Blodgett, the famous cheerleader for the dot-com bubble, say something negative about Bitcoin. He currently labeled it as the ultimate bubble. He actually didn't. That's like an over-exaggeration. If you listen to it, he actually didn't. Of course, Joe Squawk immediately interrupted to argue the bullish case for Bitcoin as being digital gold. And then to try to make himself look credible, Peter responded to himself by saying, ironically, my first appearance on CNBC was Squawk Box with Joe Kernan, where my warning of a coming financial crisis resulted in the moniker Dr. Doom. When I advised buying actual gold below 400 to hedge, Joe and crew ridiculed me for making such foolish recommendation. I don't know about that. Maybe that did happen, but for gold to be under 400, that's way, 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 way ago. Had Peter recommended people to buy Bitcoin at that point, they would all be multimillionaires and billionaires, including himself. So I don't know why you want to brag about that. But anyways, so thank you, Peter, for bringing me to this interview. So let's take a look. And the funny thing is, Henry Blodgett, he wasn't actually asked about Bitcoin at all. He just brought it up. So the whole segment was about tech stocks. So he was brought on to talk about tech stocks, talk about NASDAQ, and if this rally is for for real? Will it continue? Will it continue on? That's what he was brought on to talk about. And all of a sudden, he himself, said, okay, yes, the tech stocks are good, but it's unlike anything we've seen with Tesla and Bitcoin. He brought that up himself. And Joe, of course, is like, oh, what do you mean by that? And that's when Henry really started to, it's funny because while he's saying it with a smile, like he programmed himself to have like a robotic smile all the time. So even though he's very negative, it doesn't sound that negative, but if you listen to what he says, it's very negative. Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. Basically, it's the fool's theory where it's only going up because someone else is willing to buy it for a higher value. And you know what? It just sounds like a classic Bitcoin bear, right? So I downloaded this clip, actually shortened it. It's about 2-3 minutes. So why don't you guys take a look first, and then let's discuss.
A lot of the profits in the economy are going to these companies. So I think investors are actually correctly realizing that is where a lot of the growth is going to be. That's very different than what's happening with Tesla and very different than what's happening with Bitcoin, which is the perfect asset for a speculative mania. And we are seeing one.
Right. What do you mean by that?
So Bitcoin has this unique and wonderful feature, which is that it has no intrinsic value. It is only worth what somebody else will pay for it. And you can tell these marvelous stories about how maybe it should be some percentage of the value of gold, or it's going to be the value storage of the future, and so therefore it should be worth X. All of those stories are ridiculous. But that said, Bitcoin is in limited supply. It was understood by a relatively small group who got in early. Everybody who has ever bought it and held it has made a ton of money, which creates wonderful word of mouth. So you have more and more and more folks chasing an asset that has a very limited supply, and it literally has no cap. Bitcoin could go to 1 million. That's not any more ridiculous than it trading at 22,000 or $1. It's only going to be worth what somebody else will pay for it. So some other things, like stocks, generally are tethered at least to some future idea about the cash flow that's going to be generated from them, including, by the way, Tesla. But Bitcoin isn't. It's just worth what other people are willing to pay for it. And we're seeing that they are willing to pay a lot over time.
How much have you looked into have you read an entire treatise on Bitcoin or the Bitcoin standard? Have you done anything like that? Have you done any background on distributed ledgers and blockchain?
Many. And I was, okay. Absolutely. When I first was got acquainted with Bitcoin, I was sitting around a table at a tech conference with a lot of super smart people. And they said, Henry, you really got to understand this new thing, Bitcoin. It was trading at about $90 a coin by then. And they were passing it around the table in a wallet. And they said, this is the future, and explained a lot of the virtues about it.
Yeah, the reason I asked is, I've listened to Andreessen or Thiel or Chamath or Paul Tudor Jones, and they would take issue with you saying that it's only a greater fool theory, that it's just what someone else is willing to pay for it. And then if you do a stock to flow analysis on it in terms of halvings, et cetera, you can come up with some ranges that, if you look at a logarithmic chart, that has been what it's tracked, not tulip mania.
But okay. Let's say we have suddenly people change their mind, they get scared, value gets cut in half, suddenly demand ceases. What I haven't seen, and what I was very open to seeing in the beginning, was use of it as something other than a speculative asset. So right. We're all switching to paying for things with Bitcoin, or all cross-border transactions are done in Bitcoin. And there are a few use cases for it, but not many. Mostly what people come back to is it's a better store of value than
right.
fiat currency.
Digital gold.
It only goes up. Right.
Okay. So Henry has that, you know what I'm talking about, right? The whole time he has this smile on his face while he's saying very negative things about Bitcoin, right? Basically, his point is it has no intrinsic value, and that it's only worth something because someone else is willing to pay for it. But I don't get how bears make this argument. Like, that's how anything works out there. That's how anything works. You know, he was making the argument that like, oh, if you look at shares, you buy shares, that's based on like cash flow and revenue, right? Well, if no one else is willing to pay more for your share of that company, that share is worth zero. It doesn't matter how much cash flow that company is making. Anything, any investment on earth is based on the premise that, yes, if you want to make a profit, you have to find someone to buy it off of you. That's how it works. That's how it works with gold. That's how it works with stocks. That's worth collectibles, art, basketball cards, Pokemon cards, shoes. It doesn't matter what you have. That's how it ultimately works. Now, what he said about scarcity is 100% true, and he even said it. You know, it's scarce. It's very, very scarce, right? Yes, it is scarce. That is why people recognize it has value. That is why it is a store of value. And why do people say gold is store of value? Because they also feel like it's scarce, it's been around for a long time, and they use it and treat it as a store of value. So I just don't get it. I don't get it. But I did not like Joe. You know, you could tell Joe was irritated, so he started interrupting him a lot, right? So I'll agree that he probably should have just let him continue on and make a bigger fool of himself. But still, yeah, that interruption was a little annoying. However, I mean, you know, you look at the panel that CNBC brought up, right? The five like Mount Rushmore kind of guys, right? Including Paul Tudor Jones, Bill Miller, now Scott Minerd, and all these other guys. Really well-known, respected Wall Street like kingpin, okay? They're all bullish on Bitcoin. So, I mean, who's right? All these guys are right, or all these guys are wrong, right? It's kind of hard to argue against that. You have like the titans of Wall Street that are all now saying good things about Bitcoin. They recognize it as a store of value. They recognize it as a great alternative to gold, as a way to hedge against inflation and uncertainty. So how can you argue against those guys? Here's the thing, okay? Now, if Henry was just some nobody, that's fine. But I don't know if you guys know this. He is actually the creator of Business Insider. Business Insider is a pretty big news outlet for all things. They got very annoying because they want you to, you know, sign up for the membership for all the articles now. But he is the CEO of Business Insider. And does he have any financial background? Yes, he does. So I went on Wikipedia. Henry Blodgett. So he was a former equity research analyst and a senior internet analyst for CIBC. And he worked, he was the head of global internet research team at Merrill Lynch during the dot-com bubble. So he does have financial background. He worked with some of the biggest companies out there, Oppenheimer and also Merrill Lynch. But this is the problem. Due to his violations of security law and subsequent civil trial conviction, Blodgett is permanently banned from involvement in the securities industry. Ouch. That is why my thumbnail says con man. So Henry Blodgett is convicted of security fraud. Okay? That's his background. So, according to Wikipedia, in 2002, the New York State Attorney General, Elliot Spitzer, published Merrill Lynch emails in which Blodgett gave assessments about stock which conflicted with what was publicly published. In 2003, he was charged with civil security fraud by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. He agreed to a permanent ban from securities industry and paid a $2 million fine plus a $2 million disgorgement. So he paid $4 million. So he's permanently banned from the security industry. So he cannot work for a bank. He cannot trade stocks. He can't do any of that. Yet he started a website that's all about business and stocks. And he's on air on CNBC talking about the same thing. So I don't know if he's actually a credible resource, right? I mean, you could say maybe he's paid his dues or whatever, but still. I don't know. For me, I just don't trust what he's saying, right? And I wholeheartedly believe what he said is completely wrong. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, we've been hearing it from some of the biggest guys, biggest players, biggest industry leaders, and I don't know. I just don't think that he said what he said. I mean, it almost seems like he was paid to say that, because like I said at the beginning, like he wasn't asked, he wasn't brought on to say or talk about Bitcoin. He wasn't. He was brought on to talk about tech stocks. Yet he diverted the conversation to Bitcoin. So maybe he was paid to say it. I don't know. But anyways, moving on. I saw this, because of Peter Schiff's sighting. Someone posted this. Basically, Bitcoin all the way from like $7, all the way up, to about a few hundreds, and all the way up to 19,000. Not even recently, because Peter Schiff has stopped talking about Bitcoin really. And all the times that Bitcoin, appeared to be a bubble, appeared to be a Ponzi, appeared to be, going down, was not wise, gold is better, and this and that. And this is a good recap of everything he has ever said. And throughout this time, had he just put some money into Bitcoin, he himself said it, he would be a billionaire already, and he missed his opportunity. But he continues to double down, triple down, quadruple down on his bearish view on Bitcoin, and he just keeps losing more and more and more and more. All right, so that's number one. That's the first thing I want to talk about. And I do see a lot more people coming in now, and I'm seeing through the comments about, notifications not working. Just so you guys know, I've committed, again, to have live streams every day at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. So even if you don't get a notification, you should just show up anyways, because that's when my stream does start. But also, make sure you follow me on Twitter and Facebook, because I do post these videos on them right away, so you won't miss out. It's a double notification mechanism. All right, so moving on, just a few other things. Number one, someone brought this to my attention. This is a pretty cool site called Asset Dash, and it lists out basically all the biggest companies out there, and it lists out crypto, and they put them all together, but you could sort it by various things like internet category, hospitality, retail, S&P 500, and more, right? So this is the entire list from number one all the way down. And guess where Bitcoin is? Bitcoin, if it was a company, I know it's not, and it doesn't have stocks, but Bitcoin, in terms of market cap, is now the 12th biggest project, let's just say, on the face of the earth. 12th. That's not too shabby. That's not too shabby at all. We have Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Facebook, the top 5 companies from the US. They are just killing it this year, right? Then you have Tencent and Alibaba from China, which they're enormous. Then you have Tesla, which went up insanely this year. That's why they're number 8. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, obviously they're in Taiwan. They make chips for like AMD, Berkshire Hathaway, Visa, and Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is about to surpass Visa as the top payment, system, payment network. It's about to happen. This flip is going to happen. So Bitcoin not only is the biggest bank, because JP Morgan on here is actually, in terms of market cap, they are the biggest, $362 billion. So Bitcoin is already, if you think about it, biggest bank in the world, and they're about to become the biggest payment processor in the world once they surpass Visa. And this kind of shows you how big Bitcoin is. They're bigger than Walmart. They're bigger than Walmart, bigger than Johnson & Johnson, MasterCard, Procter & Gamble, Walt Disney World, Home Depot, PayPal, all these well-known names, right? Household names, and Bitcoin is surpassing all of them. And you know what? Bitcoin is going to continue to go up and up and up. The reason being, what you don't see here is gold. Gold is at $9 trillion. So if you take Apple and you multiply it by 4, it's still not as big as gold. So think about how much room there is for Bitcoin to grow from here. Even if Bitcoin doubles, goes to 44,000, it would only be at 800 million. That would still put it under Alphabet. And then it triples, quadruples. If it goes up to 100,000, which is 4x from here, that would be 1.6 trillion. that would only make it number 2 or maybe number 3, right? So think about it. Bitcoin being at 100,000 would still not be the second or third. I mean, it would be a third largest company project in the world, right? So it has a ton of room to grow. That is why Scott Minerd from Guggenheim is saying, if you look at scarcity, you look at how we measure gold right now, right? If you use stock to flow, it doesn't matter what you use. The way you measure gold, what it's worth, if you apply that to Bitcoin, it's worth $400,000, right? So it's interesting to kind of compare Bitcoin among this list, among the biggest players on Earth, not just in the US, on Earth, right? And it's climbing up. It's climbing up really, really, really fast. All right. I did post a video yesterday night about Coinbase. So, of course, Coinbase wants to take advantage of the situation. They decided to go conduct the IPO. Now, they didn't give a lot of information. They didn't say when, but you know they want to do this soon, right? Probably early 2021. Just follows footsteps of some of the bigger players like DoorDash and Airbnb, right? Some of the high flyers, the hot tech stocks. If Coinbase IPOs during this run, during this bull run where Bitcoin goes to $400,000, Coinbase is going to be massive, and they know this, right? So they're filing for IPO. So they're not a lot known, but one interesting thing is they're thinking about trying to do kind of like a STO kind of setup, because they are involved with Bitcoin and crypto and blockchain, right? People that want to invest in Coinbase believes in blockchain, right? So there's talks about how they want to do a STO instead, so that they can offer tokens instead of stocks, right? But who knows if the SEC is going to allow that? That may be a little bit too early for that, but that is coming. And also, I think this is not only good or fantastic for Coinbase, because they're going to be making so much money, but I think this is also good for the whole industry, because it kind of brings more attention to the space, right? You know that all the gurus out there, all the financial analysts, everyone, that is valuing these companies and talking about the prospects and stuff, they're all going to be talking about Coinbase now. And they're going to judge Coinbase based on crypto, right? So I think overall, if this happens, it's going to be good. And then you're probably going to see other companies follow suit afterwards. All right. So lastly, here's the big thing. This will blow your mind. So 2 days ago, I showed you guys this, okay? This was already mind-boggling. So I think I showed you guys maybe yesterday on this chart. They didn't update yesterday's yet. So this is the previous day, where Bitcoin Trust increased by $600 million within a single day. So it increased from 10.9 billion to 11.5 billion. $600 million in one single day, and I thought that was mind-blowing already. And I said, I can't wait to see their next one, right, in terms of how much Bitcoin was added. So they just published, and this is yesterday, keep in mind. Look at the difference in number. The Bitcoin Trust is now $12.9 billion. 12.9. So to recap, 11.5, 12.9. 11.5, 12.9. So, Grayscale added $1.4 billion worth of Bitcoin in a single day. Right? So all this new reports about hedge funds, adding $600-700 million. They're going to increase to $1 billion. Micro strategy, they're going to buy 650 more million, right? Those are all fantastic numbers. But look at what Grayscale did already. Not only did they add 600 million the day before, they added 1.4 billion the day after. That's $2 billion coming into Bitcoin within 2 freaking days. That is why Bitcoin is above 20,000. That is why it's hovering just slightly below 23,000. That's crazy amount, right? So if you want to do the math, and you could do it yourself, what's $2 billion? I can't even get that much on my calculator. $2 billion. Let's just divide by 22,000. Okay, let's just divide by 22,000. How many bitcoins is that? That's 91,000 bitcoins that was purchased within 2 single days. And how many bitcoins get mined per day? 900. So do the math. 91,000 divided by 900. It will take the miners 100 days. 100 days to mine the amount of bitcoins that was sold in the last 2 days just to Grayscale alone. That's mind-boggling. That's right. This kind of shows you how much FOMO there is among institutions, institutional investors, accredited investors, family offices, possibly pension funds. I mean, any organization that has a large amount of money, right? Instead of buying gold, what they're doing is putting a little amount into Bitcoin. And when I say little amount, I'm talking about hundreds of millions and billions. They're dipping their toes in. But when this thing really starts going, right, which it will in 2021, the amount of money flowing in is going to be astronomical compared to what it is now. As large as this is now, this is just the beginning. I have a feeling, during my live stream in February, March, April, May, when Bitcoin is at $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, the amount of money coming into Grayscale Bitcoin Trust will probably be like 2, 3, 4, 5 billion every day, day over day over day over day over day, right? So what is my point to all this? Bitcoin is scarce. Going back to what Henry Blodgett said, the reason why Bitcoin's going up is because it's scarce. It is because it's scarce, and it's only going to get more scarce as all these institutions FOMO in. They're going to try to grab as much as they can, right? There's not that many left. That's to be mined, and all that is already spoken for. So what they're doing is they're fighting, the whales and anyone that has weak hands. They're fighting those people and they're buying them up, right? So that's why I tweeted out yesterday. I kind of laughed at this, right? So it seems like the whales are still trying to dip Bitcoin a little bit, right? There's still some volatility. But the funny thing is, what's happening right now is every time a whale tries to initiate this, what's happening is they're giving up their Bitcoin to the bigger institutions, right? So all these years when the whales were manipulating the market, playing on your emotions, right? Causing some of you guys to sell your Bitcoin, and what happens? It transfers to them. The same thing is happening to the whales. They're losing control. There's no way they can compete with these big guys, right? So every time they're trying to drop Bitcoin, they're like, okay, let's plan a drop. Let's drop it. Let's cause some FUD and try to buy back low, right? But the problem is they're not buying back lower because all these Bitcoins is going straight into institution pockets, and they're losing more and more and more and more of their control, right? So I find this pretty ironic. That's what's happening now. And this is only the beginning. Only the beginning. So much more to come. Now, just to give you guys a preview, I've been working on something. I've been looking at a lot of my old videos, especially during the very, very, very bad days when Bitcoin was at 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, right? I'm going to compile some of those things and create like a video as a segment for you guys, kind of stating what I've been saying over the years, right? We got to look forward to the future, right? You dollar cost average, you buy what you can, and you hodl, right? The message has always been the same. It doesn't matter if Bitcoin is at 3,000. It's harder to hear, but it's the same thing at 3,000, 6,000, 10,000, 20,000. It's a lot more expensive now, but the name of the game is still the same. And you could see it. The big money, smart money is coming in. They're doing the same thing. And the name of the game is to basically accumulate as much Bitcoin as you can and hodl. Those of those people that can hold it the longest are the ones that make the most money. It's just that simple. It's that simple. Even with Bitcoin at 22,700, nearing 23,000, it's still the same story, because I honestly believe we are going to go much higher, 100,000, 200,000, possibly to even 400,000 within this next cycle. And who knows? Maybe this cycle never ends. You know, traditionally, Bitcoin has always followed a 4-year cycle. You know, at the tail end of the 4-year cycle, everything bursts, it comes down, and then the cycle repeats. This time around, with institutions FOMOing, these institutions are not going to be following no cycle. They're going to be carrying Bitcoin for as long as some of their other investments like gold and stuff, which has been decades. You know, they're using it as a hedge. So who knows? Maybe institutions break this cycle, that after 2021, there is no sudden drop. It could just stay there at that level forever, or it could just continue to slowly rise up. We don't know. But the good thing is we don't have to wait much longer. We don't have to wait much longer. I mean, it's kind of hard to imagine right now. Like if Bitcoin dipped to 20,000 tomorrow, right? To give you an example, let's just say tomorrow, horrific drop. Bitcoin goes down to 20,000. It would feel like a horrific drop, right? Because it went down 2,000, but we were just, below 19.5 just 2 days ago, right? This is how quick we get used to it, right? We didn't come above 20,000 until 2 days ago. So even if it fell down to 20,000, it would seem like, oh man, what a horrific drop. But we were just there 2 days ago. But to show you, I mean, I think a lot of you guys forgot that Bitcoin dipped down to 3,800 in March. This wasn't 2018. Yes, Bitcoin did fall down to 3,100 back in 2018, right around this time, actually, December 14, 15, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about 2 years ago. I think most of us have forgotten that Bitcoin fell to 3,800 in 2020 in March. This was horrific. This took basically so many people's hopes away, right? When Bitcoin was coming up, it looked like it was finally here. It went to 14,000 and it started coming down, but that's okay. Started coming back up to 10,000, and because of what happened in the pandemic, the Dow was selling off like crazy, right? And this happened. And I remember when this happened, basically most people just lost hope, right? They lost all hope. They're like, Bitcoin is never gonna come back, and it's never gonna equate to anything, right? I stuck around, and a lot of you guys just stuck around, right? You took this as a buying opportunity. And if you took that as a buying opportunity, think about it. You buy at 3,000, 4,000, you're up 5, 6x, 7x, right from there. And throughout this climb, I know many people still had something like this in the back of their mind. Like, yeah, we could just drop back down, right? But you know what? Those of you guys that have been sitting on the sidelines waiting for the next doomsday drop, you missed this entire run up. This entire run up from 3,800 to 22,000, 23,000, I should say, right? So you don't want to be missing it out. You don't want to be missing out going forward, because there's going to be more of this. We're in unknown territory, all right? So what's happening here will most likely happen here too, like this. There will be up and downs. There will be up and downs. But as more institutions come in, as more retail investors come in, this is going to go like this. And yeah, it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop anytime soon. All right. So hopefully, hopefully you guys are encouraged by that. All right, I'll turn back. I'll turn back to you guys for some Q&A. Enoch asks, George, just thinking the worst case, what if all the whales sell the BTC? That the worst case, I mean, if you're thinking about that way, you could also think, what if World War III starts? What if every country nukes everyone? What if an asteroid hits Earth and demolishes human society? Those are worse what ifs. They could happen, right? What are the chances of them happening? Well, World War III is probably not as bad as asteroid coming down and destroying human civilization or aliens coming and invading Earth. I would say the chances are small, right? Not impossible, but small. That's the same kind of chance I give all the whales, every person on Earth selling all their BTC at once. Because even if that happened, there's always going to be people that believe and buy it on the flip side. If Bitcoin drops to 0.0001 cents, there's going to be people that still buy it up. Because as long as you have at least one person that believes in it and buys it, there's value. You have to literally get rid of every single person on Earth and basically get rid of anyone that believes, right, to make it to really drop to zero. So I don't know if that's a good answer, but I just find questions like that just like impossible to answer because it's just pretty much impossible in my eyes. What if Netflix ends? Armageddon was a great movie. I wish there was more movies like Armageddon. How many Bitcoins is owned by the world population? So little. So little. Not 2.5. It's like 0.01. 0.001 of the population owns Bitcoin. So Bitcoin Rich List basically tracks all the addresses out there, at least the public ones that have been used. Of course, there's more cold storage ones that have never been connected, so they can't track that. But the number of addresses out there, totals is, what's the total number of addresses? So if you add all this together, so roughly there's 16.5 million from 0 to 0.001. And then there's 8 million. So that's probably 24, 25 million, 30, 40. Okay. So just rough balling it. So there's about between 40 to 45 million addresses known. Okay. That this tracks. So 40 to 45 million. And most people that are in the game have at least 2 addresses, if not more. I would say most people have at least like 4 or 5 addresses. But just to be conservative, let's just say 2. So that means out of the 45 million, that means there's really only 25 million that own Bitcoin. But honestly, I think that's a lot less. And then you do the math. 25 million people out of 8 billion, what is the percent of that, right? That's how many people on Earth that own Bitcoin. So the number is actually very, 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 very small. Very small. Tara, yes. So this is actually a great website. So I was just introduced to this today called assetdash.com. But this is a really good reminder that Bitcoin is now worth more than Walmart. And it's about to surpass Visa pretty soon. It's already the 12th biggest, most valuable project on Earth. I don't want to call it a company, but let's just say project, right? It's already the biggest bank in the world. It's bigger than JP Morgan. It's about to become the biggest payment processor, payment system once it surpasses Visa. And then it's on its way to move past some of these other guys. You know what? Maybe Bitcoin has well, I said this at the beginning, right? Seeing how much money is going to be diverted from gold to Bitcoin, Bitcoin has so much room to grow, right? When it reaches 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, it goes surpass Apple as the biggest biggest project in the world, right? Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to with Bitcoin. Asset-.com, John. ASSETDASH.com. See, that's the thing. How deep will the next price correction be with all the buying pressure? It could be zero. It could be zero. Because when you have all these institutions, the biggest players in the game that is now buying Bitcoin and holding it, they don't buy for 1 year. Do you think they're going to buy in 2020 and sell it at the end of 2021? No. They're buying it for a long haul. And if so much is being bought by all these institutions, you know, who's to say that there will be a next huge correction after 2021? Maybe Bitcoin just stays at 300, 400,000 and it just hovers there until it slowly resets and goes higher, right? It's a very different scenario now versus 2017 and all the previous bull runs. Every single bull run before this one is driven by retail investors. And retail investors, honestly, is driven by human emotion, and they flip, right? People flip. People flip all the time in terms of, okay, I'm bullish one day, I'm bearish the next day, and a lot of people just sell off, right? And when people see mass panic, they also mass panic and they start selling off. That's why you see these 84, 85% corrections. But these institutions are, they've been around. Some of them have been around for hundreds of years, right? They're disciplined for this. They can go through these cycles. They don't care, right? And if they're buying so much and holding, are they really going to have weak hands and sell off like the retail investors? I'm guessing not as much. Yeah, sure, they can also have FUD, but not nearly as much. They're much more disciplined. In fact, since they own so much, will probably be buying on the way down and dollar cost averaging their holdings. These are the guys that invented all this. All the quotes that you hear of from Buffett and all these guys, they're legit. They actually do follow what they're saying, right? So who's to say that these guys won't be buying up everything if there is a downturn and just, you know, cause it to come right back up, right? So I think the end of this next year 4 cycle, the end of this 4-year cycle, I believe could be very, very different than the end of the last 4-year cycle and all the other 4-year cycles before it. It could be very, very different. All right, guys, I'll leave you with that. So again, I saw a lot of people having problems with notifications, but if you are new to the channel, then make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell. Also follow me on Twitter and Facebook so you get double notified. Plus, I have these streams every day at 11 a.m., every weekday, I should say. But also, I do have a lot of segments. I do plan to have another one later today. And we'll see what Bitcoin goes. So Bitcoin obviously is a little bit down from yesterday, but I mean, we're on a day chart, you don't even notice the red, right? This is how bullish it is, and that's because institutions are just buying up every single Bitcoin. So I expect us to be at 23,000 in no time, and you know what? I expect us to be 24, 25 in no time too. And that's when things will really get fun. So thanks for tuning in. And as always, if you're interested, check out my Patreon page. And if you are completely new to Bitcoin, you want to learn, you want a crash course, then check out my Teachable page. All right. Take care, guys.